Police discover 8 guns in Obado homes. The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission officers yesterday raided the office and homes of Migori Governor Okoth Obado and confiscated, among other items, 8 firearms actually, several bank statements and electronics. Sources said, of course, 3 of the firearms were recovered in Nairobi, while the rest are found in Migori. And the question I want to begin with this morning, previously we have been, I think it was last week, we saw a story of how graft investigations were taking place in Migori, indicating that there was some 2 billion shillings that was being followed and tracked on how it was utilized. And now this is happening. And first of all, this is a governor who has been quite under siege, quote unquote, over the past few is it weeks or days, since he was released from custody in the case of the murder of Sharon Otieno. And I'm just wondering, with all this cloud around him and or above him, how then does he continue to operate as a governor? What challenges would he face in terms of executing his mandate?
One rises to the position of a governor or member of parliament or president by the will of people. And there are bodies or authorities that clear one to run. And by then, the DCI cleared him and gave him you know, a clean bill of health and gave him a certificate of good conduct. And I mean, run as a governor. And it's very unfortunate, and I said last time that in as much as we really want to pursue or fight this enemy called corruption, I said last time and I'll repeat today that I find this timing so very suspicious, because now to me it's appearing that police or the investigative authorities are on a fishing expedition. They initially said that they have information that tenders were awarded irregularly. Right. But here we are told again, they are now raiding his homes in Nairobi, in the county, you know, in Migori, in pursuit of documents that they feel could be of help in their matter. So I do not know what they relied, which information they had relied on earlier when they, you know, came to the press and said, okay, you know, we've realized that this guy used his companies to award himself, you know, tenders irregularly. So there is so much that now that meets the eye right now, because I really do not understand why anti-graft detectives who claim to be having a prima facie case still pursue, you know, this gentleman by getting to his home, harassing every person and seeking documents. Now, how do you even seek documents from my house without explanations? How do you even explain? Okay, you get bank statements from my house, for instance. What really do they, okay, what do they, I'm the owner of those, you know, for instance, the bank statements. I'm the only one who can give you explanations. You've come and welcomed. You've not sought for them. You did not try to meet requests for those documents, probably, as a governor of the county. Fine, we need to fight graft, but you equally need not to harass now this gentleman and taking advantage of his problems. He is facing challenges in court on a murder matter, and that is very serious, and of course that family needs justice. But I think we now need not to take advantage of his misfortunes to, you know, undermine him. He needs now to be given time as a governor, as the duly elected governor, you know, to be in charge of Migori County. I mean, and serve his people. Right. Investigations are very important, but please, let's handle them with a lot of care and respect. Exactly. Right, and I see that detectives were turned upside down the office of the county chief and carted away several documents they believed would help them to nail the governor. And of course, the county boss is accused of using proxies, among them his relatives, to siphon 2 billion shillings from the coffers of the county government. That is according to an affidavit filed in court by the anti-corruption watchdog. And Wakili, I want to ask you, even as you carry out these investigations, of course, several times we've seen EACC raiding homes of different suspects of graft cases, including former governor of Nairobi, that is Evans Kidero. And I just want to ask the place of these home search, this raiding of homes in the name of looking for documentation of offices.
Why is it covered in law?
Thank you so much. These particular actions have not started with the former Nairobi governor or even this governor for Migori. It has been a thing that has been there for as far as we can remember. And this emanates from the fact that the police have the duty to investigate. And pursuant to the investigations that they do or they conduct, they then make a decision whether there is a case or whether the law has been breached and which part of the law. The moment that is made, they will take the evidence that they have gathered together with the proposed charge sheet and forward them to the ODPP.
Right.
The ODPP will then look into the evidence that has been gathered, sieve through, and then make a determination of whether to charge this particular person or not. It therefore means that if you want the officers to just arrest people, then take them to the ODPP and then people are charged without first laying a basis, without first getting evidence and knowing that we have enough to secure a conviction, then the police will be doing the wrong thing.
Right.
I think this is something that, from a lawyer's perspective, the police are actually getting it right. Because now and again we have been complaining that why should the police rush to just arrest a person, take him to court, and then seek for days to keep this particular person as they investigate. During this particular period, you are violating the rights of this particular person who is considered innocent until proven guilty. So that it is better if they do this, but they are not interfering with the liberty of this particular individual. Because the other way around is then to arrest this person, go to court, get the same orders, and they will now again come and ransack your house.
So the question I'm asking is, because you hear Mheshimiwa here saying that this would amount to sort of harassing the suspect. So where do you balance the right to privacy and the rights of these suspects and the investigation that have to go on? Does EACC come with such warrant, or they just move on their own motion?
No. EACC or any police officer will not just come to your house without a search warrant. And that's the first thing you should always ask them. Unless they have very real fear that there is something that you're actually confiscating evidence, they may do so under such circumstances. However, ordinarily, they will go to court, and I'm sure they have a search warrant for these particular activities they are doing. And they will, they therefore raid these particular places where they suspect there may be adequate evidence, or there may be some sort of concealment of evidence, which they believe will help them in the investigations that they are carrying out. So it is not a carte blanche that they just woke up and decided to go. The reason for this, and you'll just look at the period it has taken, it is not yesterday or today that we have learned that they're investigating this around 2 billion shillings. We learned about it almost a month ago, when Obado was even facing the issues in the other criminal case. But they didn't move in immediately. There's a reason why they have moved in today, because there's due process that also had to be followed, which some people will say would also not be very efficient. Because Obado, if let's say these documents were available, he has seen what was happening to his former colleague, that is Governor Kidero. So if, let's assume he had these documents, he would only be a fool to have kept the same documents in the same place and waited for 4 weeks for these people to come, because they're always coming, they're just on the way.
Okay. And Mheshimiwa Patrick Munene from Chuka Igamba Ngombe, I'm not sure whether you're the right person to ask this question, bearing in mind that you're a politician, but one might ask, when you look at the graft cases that have been being pursued within government, for instance, the case of May's issue against Crop Development Principal Secretary Dr. Richard Blesiampe, once he was taken to court, he was sort of suspended because he's no longer now working. He is on half salary. Lilian Omolo, the Principal Secretary for Public Service, was taken off from office after the case on NIS2 began. But the political leaders appear to have a different way of treatment, because now Governor Okoth Obado, everyone will be talking about that he has the the mandate of the people is innocent until proven guilty. So where do you balance, how do you balance the interest of a public servant and the interest of an elected leader, bearing in mind that they are facing similar serious charges?
Monica, what I want to say first, I want to say that I sympathize with this guy, Obado. And you know, it's normally saying that when the devil decides to visit you, he comes with his relatives. He normally doesn't come alone. Because now you can't understand why he's facing all these problems at this time. But what I want to say is this. So many people have mistaken politicians to be accounting officers. If today there's an issue of CDF in my constituency, you hear people saying that I need to step down, but I'm not an accounting officer. Elected people are not accounting officers. A governor is not an accounting officer. The governor does not sign anything in the county government. He's not an accounting officer. So if there are malpractices in finances in this county, we know the people to follow, not the governor. And what I want to say is what the governor can do, we only say that you take responsibility, moral responsibility, but he's not an accounting officer.
But he is being investigated.
But
his home is being ransacked.
That's why I'm worried, because the governor is not an accounting officer. That's why I don't understand how investigate. Because we should be seeing now the chief finance officer of that county being investigated, the CEC finance being investigated, the procurement guy being investigated, because the governor does not run accounts.
Even when, because it's claimed that he did business using proxies.
So the only thing now you can attach Obado at corruption is if you used companies belonging to relatives as is being unit to do business. There he is culpable of that. But other corruption cases that happen in the county, you can't hold the governor as per se responsible. But what I wish about this case is one. Last week when we were here, in the newspaper, things were very well put down, that this company was awarded this much with this money. This company awarded this amount. This company. Now, it seems that the detectives had all this information and they pieced it up to 2 billion. Where they got all these documents from? Because they were so particular that this company belonging to the Sun in China got this money. This company got, what are we still investigating then? And all what I play in this case, because I don't want to play devil's advocate and say Obado is screening this thing. My play is that this thing does not take a political dimension, that we sacrifice him politically, because I hate coincidences myself. It's a big coincidence that this was happening yesterday, as a former prime minister was hosting leaders from Migori. It's a big coincidence, because when I looked at the leaders he was hosting and Obado was not there, I wondered, can there be a bigger leader in a county than the governor? And the governor is an NASA leader in Migori. So I wondered why he was not in that meeting. But
Mheshimiwa, we may not be naive about that. We saw Senator Ochilo Ayako there, and clearly they don't get along with the governor. Would the Prime Minister really...
No, it's not Ochilo who had called the meeting, it's the Prime Minister.
No, what I'm saying is that the senior leaders of Migori County is Governor Okoth Obado and Senator Ochilo Ayako. So you cannot be naive to assume that...
No. I think there you are wrong, Sam.
I learned so much in that meeting.
The governor is the topmost politician in a county. He actually runs the county affairs. The senator is simply a watchdog, like he sees what the governor does, and it's very suspicious, you know. And as my colleague has said, quite coincident. I don't know whether we take it as a coincidence. Last time when His Excellency the Deputy President visited Governor Obado, the following day's headlines were about corruption. And attaching Obado, and I said they were very suspicious over the weekend. Right. And I need to declare myself here. I mean, very clearly, over the weekend, myself and Governor Obado and His Excellency the Deputy President were somewhere, you know, in Kisii and Migori and Nyeri. Now, one day after that, we see that Governor Obado's house has been, you know, ransacked, or rather, you know, the detectives have visited him.
Is there any relationship? So
what I'm trying to think, probably, I think this thing is now taking a political dimension. And if you look at there's a particular paragraph where they are saying that the EACC officials were here, but we do not know what they were looking for. They did not tell us anything. They just came and demanded to be given access to the office and homes. Dan can tell you here, Article 49, in as much as even if you have a search warrant, Article 49 gives me a right as a suspect or arrested person, or whichever way, to be told promptly in the language that I understand, of the reason why you as an officer you are here, and not just harassing people up and down because you've got a search warrant.
Is that correct?
That is very correct. Check Article 49 particularly.
I'll check it.
And then, like my colleague said, governors are not procurement officers. There is a long chain of procurement process, and it's well enshrined right from the law. If you check Article 227, and I think I'm very right, it gives guidelines. It sets basis for what will happen, you know, on procurement. That procurement process should be, you know, competitive, should be transparent, those kind of things. And when you look at the Procurement Act, it also gives guidelines that it's an open thing. There are some procurement processes. There is a limit of a certain amount that a procurement office must be advertised and very open. So looking at all these things, then this is a process that probably happened way earlier. If it's about the procurement process being irregularly awarded and stuff like that, it was a competitive process. It must have been a competitive process. It must have been transparent. And we should actually be talking about those faults on procurement. Was it transparent? Was it competitive? You know, was it cost effective? All those kind of things. Those are the things that those are the procurement flows in case one falls.
I want to help you on that. Let's say a governor has 8 CECs. He has a CEC for trade, he has a CEC for agriculture, he has a finance CEC, and there are corruption in the county. I want to relate it to the presidency. Right now we say laissez-faire has been suspended because there was corruption, the Miss scandal. Yep. Now, are we suspended Uhuru Kenyatta?
No.
You know that Uhuru Kenyatta owns the same position the governor owns in a county.
No, not exactly. The president has, what do you call it?
Immunity.
Immunity from prosecution in civil and criminal matters until they are out of office. The governor
no,
does
I want to holding someone accountable. Do you now start blaming, like now that we're having agriculture issue? Do you start blaming His Excellency the President?
See, there's a difference here, and I'm sure Akili will want to talk about this. There's a difference here that there are companies that are linked to the governor's family.
Now,
right?
we should then be talking
when
this
you
way.
talk about,
the companies now.
Are the companies that are being investigated in the NOS linked to President Kenyatta?
You know, I've said very clear, Kituku. I've said if Governor Obado used his companies to do trade in the county, that is conflict of interest, it's corruption.
Yeah.
But if corruption happened, general corruption in the county, now you don't hold him responsible.
No,
but if he was part of the corruption,
that's why I want us to be very specific.
But if he was part of the corruption, using relatives and children,
we need
companies,
to be specific to the case at hand,
then now that is corruption.
Then if we
what I'm trying to say is
we'll lose it.
This, to start with, these are mere allegations of companies linked to the governor. And then they say some of these companies are owned by his relatives. I want to presume that those relatives are grown-ups, to start with. And you see, we need not to demonize a relative, probably, who has involved himself on a competitive process. If it was competitive, that's what I've said. Yeah. We need to find out, was the procurement process, you know, defying Article 227? Was it competitive? You know, was it timely? Was it cost effective? Was it transparent? If it was transparent, even if it's linked to you, and it was
going back to the presidency again.
No.
The president has so many relatives in this country. They are business people. Yes. They are rich people. Yes. So they can't win a contract in this country. It's corruption. Or if they win a contract, you will say it's president who has used the company.
I want us to limit this discussion to what is in the papers. And I want, first of all, before I get to Wakili, I want to correct you, Mheshimiwa Soro. Article 49 of the Constitution talks about the rights of arrested persons, that an arrested person has the right to be informed promptly in language that the person understands of the reason for the arrest, the right to remain silent, and the consequences of not remaining silent.
Proceed.
Governor Okoth Obado's home was not arrested.
Proceed.
No. There's nothing else that talks about the search, because I think when there's a search to a home, it's about the right to privacy, which is an article that I'll find before, that is after Wakili responds to this question. They are trying to link or to associate or to draw parallels between the presidency and the governorship or at a county level. And can you really use the argument of immunity when you're talking about a governor, whether the corruption investigations are specific like this, the families of proxies, or rather companies of proxies of the governor alleged, as well as general corruption at the county?
I think that is quite misplaced, and it's unfortunate because ideally, we know that the president has immunity, and criminal immunity extends only to the point where he is a sitting president. After that, due process can always follow if there is any, and as we always know, criminal actions do not have a limit in law. You can actually be arraigned in court 20, 50 years later. However, when we talk about the county government, and I'm happy that we want to restrict ourselves to the issues at hand, because when we go to generalities, we will actually lose the point. Because I will agree with Mheshimiwa that you do not just have a carte blanche, that whatever happens if an employee knocks someone on the road, then it is the governor to blame. That one, we will actually miss the point. But these are very, very specific allegations. They are names of these companies. They are directors therein. And it is indeed clear that these companies got a benefit. The very fact that these companies were not formed 20 years ago, they were just formed immediately after the governor took office, is already suspect. Because if it was a company that was a going concern, that was trading in, let's say, tires, and the governor, and even previously was trading in tires, and the governor has become a governor, they put in their bid, they get it, fine. But a company created immediately, and not one, not two, but several. And these companies are directly linked to these particular relatives. Then, and there are payments which have been made. And by the time the police are giving us these details, they already have the account details of these particular companies. And they very well might know how the money has been withdrawn from these particular accounts. So that for them to demonstrate that the governor has been conferred a benefit out of this process, they have to go to the accounts of the governor, they have to go to try to get withdrawal slips, and that's why this particular search was not limited to the office and the homes. It also went to the bank itself, so that if they have this information, then they can truly say it will not be a witch hunt, like my Washimias are saying. They will actually say we have clear evidence that there is a benefit, which will then tie the rope from the procurement process to the very point that they are saying there is this particular offense, which is abuse of office, which is under the penal code. But if Washimias will say the police should not do their job, the police should not go and investigate. Let me say, the police should not go and investigate just because someone was with the president or the deputy president or even with Trump. That is where politics will spoil it for us, because we are looking at it from a political lens.
How can you contest a such warrant within the law?
You actually go to court, and once you know, the problem is you may not know that the search warrant has been issued, because it is an ex parte application by the state, so that the court will balance it out, and that's where the court comes in. It will look at what the police are looking for, balance it with the law, and then they will give the police officers the right. And the courts have, in many instances, said no. Remember, it is only 2 weeks ago where the court even cautioned EACC officers and told them to even return documents which they took from the former Nairobi governor's place, which are not related to even the search that they were conducting, because the search warrants are limited. It is not a carte blanche to carry everything. But lastly on this,
which more is itching to comment.
Before he comments, let me tell you what the law will say. All of us, the four of us, have our own rights under the Constitution. But my rights will end where I'm actually crossing over to breach his rights. So that we cannot say that just because I have the right to liberty, right to privacy, I will go and shoot someone, put the gun in my house, and no one should come in. When there is a bigger cause, then the law will actually allow an officer to cross over for the protection of not only myself, but the entire population.
You know, Kituko, you asked me a very specific question. At what should happen in terms when it comes to a politician and a corruption? And you compared it with the PSAs and the CSAs are always happening. And I give you an answer. I compare that with the Resiampe and Nini who have been implicated and they have been told to step aside. That was your question. And I gave you an answer that the way we are handling corruption at the governors in this country, we are breeding corruption unknowingly. Because we have had corruption since we started the devolution. Governor so-and-so, there was corruption. Up to now, we demonize those governors. Until there are people under these governors who are capable, because I think we are fighting corruption in a long way. We need to hear a chief officer in this country, in a county, has been jailed for corruption. We want to hear a CC who signs account has been jailed for corruption. But if chief officers are sure, if there is corruption, it is the governor. Why won't they do corruption? So I think we need to approach corruption in county government in a different way. In CDF, I've had fund managers who have gone to court in CDF. So as a member of parliament, if you go to a fund manager today with a shady thing, he'll tell you, my friend, this will take me to jail. But in county government, the people under the governor have known that the governor takes responsibility. So I think to ethics and anti-corruption and the organs fighting corruption in this country, we need to dig deeper. Like, for example, now in Governor Obado's case, if there were companies related to him that were awarded contracts in a due process, I need to hear, before even we reach to Obando, I need to hear the guy, the procurement guy in that county, has been called to court and to respond. How did you award this? You see, in that we'll be fighting corruption in a systematic way. But not to demonize Obado for a whole 2 years, and then this guy goes scot-free, continues being a procurement officer in this country, or even moves to another agency, you will do corruption in that agency again. So we need to hold the real culprits